The once peaceful human colony of Etheris lay shattered under a sky filled with billowing smoke. The colony's sleek metal towers, which once shimmered in the light of distant stars, were now reduced to nothing more than twisted ruins. Xenthor warships hovered ominously in the sky, their sleek, jagged forms blocking out the light. Their energy weapons had ravaged the city in a matter of hours, and the streets were littered with the wreckage of human life. Captain Adrian Hale of the U.S. Vanguard stood at the command console of his battered warship, his knuckles white, as he gripped the controls. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched the devastation unfold on the colony below. The Xenthor were merciless, wiping out everything in their path. The orders from Earth's High Command had been clear: avoid escalation, negotiate, find a peaceful solution. But that didn't matter anymore. A call came through the comms. It was Lieutenant Kara Tanaka, his trusted second-in-command. "Captain, we've got a small fleet of Xenthor destroyers incoming. They're on an intercept course. We're outnumbered, outgunned. We won't make it out of this unless we act." Hale's face hardened. He knew the odds were slim. Earth wasn't prepared for this level of aggression. The Xenthor were technologically advanced, their weapons devastatingly precise. But what they didn't understand was human nature. Humans fought back, no matter the cost. "Give me a direct link to all fleet commanders," Hale ordered. Within moments, the image of several grim-faced fleet officers appeared on the holographic display. "Captain Hale," Admiral Ibarra's voice crackled through the comm. "Do you have a plan? We're seeing reports of total destruction across the colony. The Xenthor are slaughtering civilians. We can't let them get away with this." Hale's mind raced, but he quickly came to a decision. "We're not retreating. We're not waiting for reinforcements. We're going to hit them where it hurts. We have one shot at this. Prepare all weapons for a full assault. Take the fight to them." The officers nodded grimly. Even if it was a suicide mission, they would follow his lead. In the depths of space, humanity had been underestimated for far too long. It was time to change that. The Vanguard powered up its weapons, and Hale's hand hovered over the activation button. His eyes glanced one last time at the colony's ruins, humanity's first test, their first bloodshed. He thought of his family, his comrades, every life lost on Etheris. The rage surged through him. "All ships, attack," Hale commanded. The fleet surged forward, their weapons firing in unison. For the first time in human history, a group of warships united under one cause, defying the odds. The Xenthor fleet was taken by surprise as the humans launched their assault with a ferocity and precision they hadn't anticipated. The Xenthor ships, powerful but slow to react, found themselves caught in the chaos of humanity's assault. Explosions tore through the blackness of space, lighting up the cosmos as human ingenuity and determination crushed their enemy's superiority. One by one, Xenthor destroyers fell. It wasn't the sheer firepower of humanity's ships that won the battle, but the sheer unpredictability and relentless drive of their tactics. The humans fought like cornered animals. There was no hesitation, no fear, only the determination to survive. When the dust settled and the remaining Xenthor warships began retreating, Hale stood silent at the command center. His heart still pounded, but there was a glint in his eyes now, one that hadn't been there before. The galaxy had just witnessed the first true sign of human strength. The Xenthor might have underestimated humanity, but humanity would never again be ignored. As the Vanguard limped back into orbit around Etheris, Hale turned to Tanaka, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is just the beginning." The news of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. No one would ever look at the human race the same way again. The spark of rebellion had been lit, and the galaxy would soon know the wrath of humanity. In the aftermath of the battle, the human fleet returned to Earth, battered but unbowed. The loss of Etheris hung heavily over humanity, but their victory against the Xenthor had sparked something much greater. The galaxy now knew what humans were capable of: resilience, ingenuity, and an unyielding will to survive. Captain Hale's victory had not only been a blow to the Xenthor, but a message to every race that had underestimated humanity's place in the stars. They were no longer a species to be ignored. Back on Earth, the world was abuzz. The war had begun, though no one had fully grasped what that truly meant yet. Amid the celebrations, there was also a rising sense of dread. A profound realization began to settle in. Humanity was standing at the precipice of something much bigger than anyone had imagined. Inside a secure command facility beneath the Earth's surface, a council of humanity's most brilliant military minds, politicians, and scientists gathered. High-ranking officials from the United Nations and the Interstellar Defense Force were present, but their discussions were not the usual fare of diplomacy and peace talks. The war with the Xenthor was over, but the war for humanity's survival was only just beginning. Hale stood in front of the holographic projection, his voice steady but filled with a quiet intensity. "We've seen their power, but more importantly, we've seen our own. The Xenthor came at us expecting an easy victory, but we gave them a fight they'll never forget. The question is not whether we can win. The question is how far we're willing to go to protect ourselves. Because if we don't act, the galaxy will come for us next." Admiral Ibarra, the leader of Earth's fleets, nodded grimly. "The Xenthor might have retreated, but they will regroup. They will come back with a vengeance. And worse, there are many more empires out there that see humanity's rise as a threat. If we don't strike first, we'll find ourselves fighting multiple enemies on all fronts." The Council's discussions grew heated as the debate raged on. Some argued for diplomacy, pushing for an alliance with alien species to ensure humanity's safety. Others, like Hale, were far less trusting. "We can't afford to wait for the galaxy to decide our fate. Our enemies think we're weak because they've never truly fought us. But we've shown them what we can do. The next step is to build something that will make sure no one ever questions humanity's strength again." The decision was unanimous. Humanity would not wait for the galaxy to come to them. They would build the Wrath Fleet, a collection of advanced warships far beyond anything the human race had ever fielded. But to do so, they would need to work quickly, drawing upon every scrap of alien technology they had scavenged from their first battle, along with every breakthrough humanity had made in energy weapons, propulsion systems, and artificial intelligence. The construction of the fleet began in secrecy, on distant asteroid mining colonies, on the barren surfaces of moons, and in hidden facilities beneath Earth. Engineers worked day and night. The ships were to be a perfect blend of human creativity and alien technology. No longer would humanity rely on outdated methods or antiquated designs. The Wrath Fleet would be the spearhead of a new human dominance in the galaxy, and the galaxy would soon come to learn that no one could challenge humanity's will. Hale oversaw every aspect of the operation, from tactical strategies to ship designs, but it was clear this would be more than just a war for survival. It was a war for identity. Humanity, long cast as a lesser species, would now prove its rightful place at the top of the galactic order. As the first of the Wrath Fleet's new warships, sleek, powerful, and bristling with new technologies, emerged from the shipyards, the human leaders gathered for the official unveiling. It wasn't just the ships that were being unveiled. It was humanity's resolve. The Wrath Fleet was no longer just a symbol of vengeance. It was a declaration that humanity had arrived. "Let them see our power," Hale muttered as the warships prepared for their first official mission. "Let them see that the galaxy has made a grave mistake underestimating us." The galaxy had been warned, and soon humanity would strike. The Wrath Fleet stood ready, humanity's newly constructed warships, each a technological marvel blending human ingenuity and alien engineering, were now fully operational. The sleek, dark-colored vessels glittered under the harsh lights of Earth's orbit, their weapons powered up and ready for action. Captain Hale stood on the command deck of the Vanguard, gazing at the fleet through the observation window. The stars beyond seemed distant, cold, and indifferent. But humanity's presence in the cosmos was no longer insignificant. "Captain, the fleet is in position." Lieutenant Tanaka's voice broke through Hale's reverie. He nodded, his expression grim. They had come so far, but there was no time to rest. The galaxy had already begun to take notice of their actions, and now their response was coming. Despite their victory over the Xenfor, Earth's leaders knew that this would be only the beginning. Humanity's strike against the Xenfor had been a small yet critical victory, but it was not enough to shift the balance of power across the galaxy. Humanity was still seen as weak by many alien civilizations, and the older, more powerful species, the Zarnak Empire chief among them, watched with growing interest and concern. They would not allow a species like humanity to challenge their long-held dominance. The first test of humanity's newfound strength came from an unexpected source. The Eurythian Syndicate, a group of mercenary fleets made up of various alien species with a taste for profit and power. They had heard of humanity's victory, and sensing an opportunity, launched a series of raids on human trade routes. They believed that now was the perfect time to strike, assuming that the humans were still vulnerable and distracted by their own internal struggles. But they were gravely mistaken. Humanity's response was swift. The Wrath fleet launched a counter-offensive, striking Eurythian forces in a series of lightning-fast raids. The Eurythians had no idea what hit them. The humans fought with the ferocity of cornered animals, their tactics sharp and unpredictable. Unlike the Xenfor, whose methods were rigid and predictable, humanity had learned the art of war in the heat of combat. They knew how to adapt, how to turn the enemy's strengths into weaknesses. The Eurythians were good at ambushes and raids, but against humanity's sheer will to win, they stood little chance. Captain Hale, directing the battle from the vanguard, watched with a cold satisfaction as enemy ships exploded in fireballs across the vastness of space. The Eurythian Syndicate had underestimated humanity, just as the Xenfor had. "Prepare for the next wave," Hale barked, eyes scanning the data feeds on the holoscreen. "We'll hit them harder, faster. They won't have time to regroup." The battles raged for days, with humanity gaining the upper hand each time. With every victory, the message grew louder. Humanity was not just a fledgling species. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the last of the Eurythian ships limped away, crippled or destroyed, Hale allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. But he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of factions, empires, and power struggles. Humanity had made its mark, but now the real challenges would begin. Word spread quickly through the galaxy that humanity was no longer to be dismissed. The Eurythian Syndicate, who had once prided themselves on their ability to pick on weaker prey, had been crushed. The galaxy's older, more powerful races took note, and among them was the Zarnak Empire, the oldest and most secretive race in the galaxy, whose ancient fleets now began to stir. "The galaxy is waking up to us, Captain," Tanaka said, her voice filled with a mix of pride and wariness. "But we've only shown a fraction of what we can do." Hale's gaze hardened. "And they'll see more, much more." Humanity's first taste of true power had been swift and brutal, but Hale knew this was just the beginning. The true test was still to come. The Xenfor and Eurythians were only the warm-up. The galaxy's mightiest powers were next, and humanity's wrath would make them kneel. The question now was whether the galaxy would yield willingly, or if humanity would be forced to break them first. But whatever happened next, one thing was clear. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows, and they would never be ignored again. The triumph over the Eurythian Syndicate was a victory, yes, but humanity's rise had stirred something deeper, darker, and more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. In the aftermath of the battle, Captain Hale and his fleet were hailed as heroes, but the true costs of their success were hidden beneath a web of political intrigue that began to unravel as humanity expanded its reach. As humanity's power grew, so did the scrutiny from other galactic empires. The Xenfor, who had initially underestimated humanity, now watched with suspicion, but it was the Zarnak Empire, ancient, cunning, and covert, that began to take the most direct interest. The Zarnak had long been the puppet masters of the galaxy, manipulating weaker species like pawns on a galactic chessboard. Now, they saw the rise of humanity as a direct threat to their millennia-long control. Unknown to Hale and the fleet, the Zarnak had already begun working in the shadows. They saw humanity's victory over the Earthians as a harbinger of things to come. The rise of a new power meant the potential for disruption in the delicate balance they had so carefully maintained. The Zarnak were masters of subterfuge, and they had already set their sights on dismantling humanity's newfound strength. It began subtly. Minor incidents, skirmishes along trade routes, and whispered rumors among the galaxy's less than reputable factions all pointed to something darker. The Zarnak had begun sowing discord among the lesser races, encouraging alliances with those who might benefit from humanity's downfall. Behind closed doors, they manipulated diplomatic channels, offering incentives to alien species to provoke tensions with humanity. But their biggest weapon was the creation of a false narrative that painted humanity as a warmongering, expansionist threat, rather than the defenders of their own survival that they were. As tensions rose, humanity's leadership found themselves at odds with one another. Diplomatic channels grew fraught with mistrust, and the once unified front began to fracture. Some factions, led by human senators and political figures, advocated for negotiating with the galaxy's powers, hoping to avert a larger conflict. But others, including Hale, saw this as a dangerous game of appeasement. "The Zarnak are playing us," Hale said in a closed-door meeting, his voice low but filled with an undeniable intensity. "They want us divided so they can strike when we're weak. We cannot afford to trust them, not for a second." His words were met with opposition. "We can't go to war with every race in the galaxy," one diplomat argued. "If we turn every alien into an enemy, we risk losing everything we fought for." But Hale's resolve was unwavering. "If we don't act, we risk losing everything to the Zarnak's manipulations. They've been playing these games for millennia, and now they think they can control us. We need to counteract their moves before it's too late." The political rifts deepened, and what was once a unified human front began to crumble. Those in power were torn between diplomacy and war, and the stakes were higher than ever. The Zarnak's whispers had spread far and wide, influencing key political figures and fueling internal divisions. Humanity was slowly being pulled apart from within. The situation escalated when a high-ranking human officer, Admiral Robert Lang, who had been a close ally of Hale, was found guilty of treason. Evidence was fabricated, holograms of him negotiating with alien factions in secret. Publicly, it appeared that Lang had been plotting to sell humanity out to the highest bidder, betraying his own people for personal gain. The scandal rocked Earth to its core, and the fear of espionage and treachery began to spread like wildfire. But Hale wasn't fooled. He had seen the work of the Zarnak before. This was no ordinary betrayal. The Zarnak had framed Lang, planting false evidence to create division and distrust. As Hale dug deeper into Lang's case, the pieces started to fit together. The Zarnak had used their political puppets to manipulate events, ensuring that humanity's internal strife would distract them from the real battle ahead. "I don't care what the reports say," Hale said, his jaw clenched in frustration. "Lang is innocent, and I'm going to prove it." As the web of deception continued to unfold, humanity's leaders were forced to confront the reality of their situation. The Zarnak Empire's influence had already begun to poison their ranks, and the greatest battle humanity faced might not be fought in the stars, but in the corridors of power. It was no longer just about defeating alien fleets. It was about surviving the political games of a galaxy that would never let them rise without a fight. And soon, Hale realized, they would face a war that would not just determine humanity's survival, but the very soul of their species. Would they give in to the lies and manipulations of the galaxy's puppet masters, or would they rise, united, to forge their own future? The answer was coming, but it would take everything humanity had to expose the truth. And they would do it the only way they knew how, by fighting back. The political chaos on Earth was spiraling out of control. Allegations of treason, the growing whispers of betrayal, and the rising tide of mistrust threatened to tear humanity apart from within. Captain Hale had long suspected that the Zarnak Empire's insidious influence was behind the unraveling of Earth's unity, but now he had undeniable proof. Admiral Lang's false conviction was just the beginning. The Zarnak were playing a long game, working tirelessly to sow division, manipulate public perception, and destabilize humanity's fragile alliances. In the shadows of the galaxy, the Zarnak watched, waiting for humanity to self-destruct. Their empire had ruled with an iron fist for centuries, and they were accustomed to the idea of dominating through manipulation, subterfuge, and deceit. To them, humanity was nothing more than a wild card, a species that needed to be contained before it could grow too powerful. If they could exploit humanity's divisions and fears, the Zarnak would be able to crush any resistance before it could form into a real threat. "Captain," Tanaka said quietly, interrupting Hale's brooding thoughts. She stood at the doorway, her eyes flickering with concern. "The Council's meeting today. It's not going well. Some of the factions are pushing for an all-out diplomatic retreat. They want to de-escalate everything. The Zarnak are winning the war of influence." Hale's gaze darkened. He had feared this outcome. With Lang's fabricated treason hanging over them, the political factions that had once been strong allies were now divided, pulling in different directions. There were those calling for peace and compromise, desperate to avoid a galactic war that could wipe out humanity. But Hale knew better. Peace with the Zarnak, or any other empire that sought to control humanity, would mean the end of Earth's autonomy. "We can't afford to back down now," Hale said, his voice sharp. "If we let the Zarnak dictate the terms, humanity will never be free. We're at a crossroads. Either we expose their manipulation and unite our people, or we let them win." Silently, from the shadows. But even as Hale spoke with determination, the political rift continued to widen. The media was rife with scandalous rumors about Hale's own actions, the rising paranoia among the human leadership reaching a fever pitch. The Zarnak's strategy was working. The more they twisted the truth, the less certain humanity's future seemed. In an attempt to gain some control, Hale convened a clandestine meeting with a small group of trusted leaders. Among them were key military figures and a few high-ranking members of Earth's government. They were humanity's last hope for maintaining unity. But even among them, there were fractures. Each representative brought a different perspective. Some wanted to negotiate with the galaxy's powers, while others, like Hale, believed that humanity's only chance for survival lay in fighting back and exposing the Zarnak's machinations. "Captain, the stakes have never been higher," said General Cassandra Liu, her face tight with concern. "If we push for a military response, we risk alienating those who want peace. If we do nothing, we risk falling into the Zarnak's trap. The galaxy will never see us as anything other than pawns in their game." "We can't let them win by default," Hale replied firmly. "The Zarnak are controlling the narrative, using their spies and agents to manipulate us. We need to take the fight to them, expose their deception before it's too late." But the room was divided. There were murmurs of dissent as political pressures mounted. Some argued that humanity had proven itself capable, but others feared that escalating tensions would lead to an all-out galactic war that they couldn't possibly win. Hale's mind raced. His instincts told him that humanity had no choice but to stand their ground. "We need to gather evidence," Hale said, his voice steady and purposeful. "We need to reveal the Zarnak's hand to the galaxy. If we don't, our allies will continue to turn against us, and the division will only deepen." In the coming weeks, Hale initiated a covert operation to infiltrate Zarnak-controlled sectors, using intelligence gathered from Lang's supposed betrayal to track down the Zarnak agents who had been influencing human politics. It was a dangerous mission, one that could expose their entire strategy and throw humanity's fragile position into jeopardy. But it was the only way to prove the Zarnak's involvement in the galaxy's destabilization. As the mission unfolded, Hale's forces began to unravel the Zarnak's plans. They uncovered clandestine meetings, encrypted communications, and hidden bases, each piece of evidence revealing the vast, tangled network of manipulation that the Zarnak had woven around Earth and its allies. But the more they discovered, the more it became clear. The Zarnak were not just trying to control humanity. They were preparing for a war. "We need to get this information to the galaxy," Hale said, his tone resolute. "Once the truth is out, the galaxy will have no choice but to take a stand against the Zarnak." As the evidence piled up, so did the stakes. Hale knew that revealing the truth could either save humanity or doom them all. But one thing was certain. The Zarnak's stranglehold on the galaxy was coming to an end, and humanity would be the one to bring it down. The tension in the air was palpable as Hale and his crew raced against time to expose the Zarnak Empire's insidious grip on the galaxy. The evidence they had uncovered was irrefutable. Detailed records of covert meetings, encrypted communications between Zarnak agents and corrupt human politicians, and maps leading to hidden Zarnak bases in the far reaches of space. The truth was laid bare, and now humanity's only hope was to broadcast it to the entire galaxy before the Zarnak could silence them. "Captain, we've located the transmission relay," Tanaka reported, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "It's deep in Zarnak-controlled space, heavily fortified. We'll need to cut through their defenses to get a signal out." Hale stood at the helm of the Vanguard, his gaze locked on the starry expanse before him. The Wrath fleet was poised to strike, ready to take on the Zarnak Empire's shadowy forces head-on. The plan was simple: destroy the Zarnak's military outposts, seize the relay, and send a signal that would expose their manipulation of humanity to the entire galaxy. But simple plans rarely survived first contact with the enemy. "Deploy the fleet," Hale ordered, his voice cold with determination. "We're not just sending a message. We're ending the Zarnak's reign of secrecy today." The Wrath fleet surged forward, cutting through space with unprecedented speed and precision. Each ship was a testament to humanity's relentless spirit, sleek, powerful, and bristling with advanced weaponry. The Zarnak might have the advantage of age and experience, but humanity had something they never expected: adaptability, ingenuity, and a sheer will to survive. As the fleet approached the first of the Zarnak outposts, the distance closed rapidly. Within moments, they were in range, and the battle erupted. The Zarnak forces were formidable, their ships designed for swift, surgical strikes. But the humans were relentless. The Vanguard fired first, its weapons tearing through the Zarnak defenses with brutal efficiency. Explosions rocked the void as the enemy ships fell one by one, their structures buckling under the force of human firepower. The Wrath fleet moved like a coordinated fist, each ship supporting the others in a precise dance of destruction. "Admiral, we've breached their outer defenses," Tanaka reported. "The relay is within reach, but we've got incoming reinforcements. They're coming in fast." "Keep pushing forward," Hale commanded, his eyes fixed on the glowing red beacon of the relay station on the nearby moon. "We don't stop until that signal is broadcast." But just as the relay came into sight, the Zarnak launched their counteroffensive. A new wave of their warships appeared from the shadows, catching the Wrath fleet off guard. The sheer firepower of the Zarnak's reinforcements pushed the human fleet back, and the battle grew chaotic. The Zarnak were experienced at tactical retreats, always staying one step ahead, and now they used that knowledge to exploit humanity's momentary vulnerability. "Captain, we're losing ground." Tanaka's voice crackled over the comms. "The Zarnak are overwhelming us. We can't break through their lines." Hale's gaze never wavered. He knew that they had one chance left. "We need to get that relay. If we don't broadcast this truth, all of this will have been for nothing. Hold the line. Reinforcements are on the way." As if on cue, the Vanguard sensors lit up with a new signal: human reinforcements, a fleet of battle-worn ships led by Admiral Ibarra. The relief was immediate. Humanity's united front had come to bear, and together they pushed forward, breaking through the Zarnak's defensive line with a furious onslaught. The Zarnak, realizing that their position was no longer tenable, began to retreat, their once pristine ships now littered with damage. "Target the relay," Hale barked. "All ships, focus fire on that station." The Wrath fleet converged on the Zarnak relay station, their weapons pounding it with brutal force. Within moments, the station crumbled, sending shockwaves through the surrounding space. But it wasn't over yet. The relay, now compromised, had to be secured and activated. Hale ordered a boarding party to deploy. With a crackling hiss, a team of human soldiers teleported to the station's surface, guns raised and ready for anything. They fought through the Zarnak's last-ditch defenses, cutting through the enemy with relentless precision. The soldiers reached the core of the relay and activated the signal. The truth was finally about to be broadcasted across the galaxy. For a moment, everything was still. Then the galaxy-wide transmission hummed to life. The message was clear and unambiguous. It exposed the Zarnak Empire's manipulation of human politics, their covert operations to sabotage humanity's rise, and their attempt to dominate the galaxy through deceit. The Zarnak's grip on the galaxy had been shattered in a single moment. The truth was out. Hale stood at the bridge of the Vanguard, his eyes fixed on the stars. The battle wasn't over, not yet, but humanity had taken the first step toward breaking the Zarnak's stranglehold. And for the first time, the galaxy would know the full extent of humanity's wrath. The storm had broken, and the galaxy would never be the same. The broadcast sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Across the vast expanse of space, every civilization, from the most powerful empires to the smallest fringe colonies, was now fully aware of the Zarnak Empire's treachery. Humanity's relentless fight to expose the truth had done what no army could. It had shaken the foundations of the galaxy's political order. The Zarnak, once the puppet masters of the stars, were now out in the open, their manipulation laid bare for all to see. In the immediate aftermath of the broadcast, the response was swift. The Zarnak Empire, still reeling from the loss of their secrecy, scrambled to contain the damage. Their agents were being hunted across the galaxy, their once dominant fleets now retreating in disarray. But the revelation had ignited something far more dangerous for the Zarnak than any military defeat. It had stirred the fires of rebellion. Humanity's bold defiance was not just a rallying cry for other oppressed races. It had opened the eyes of those who had long been pawns in the Zarnak schemes. Alien species who had suffered under the Zarnak's quiet rule were now organizing, their calls for independence growing louder. The galaxy was beginning to fracture, and the Zarnak knew that their reign could no longer remain unchallenged. In the heart of the Zarnak Empire, High Commander Virik, the Zarnak's leader, paced in the shadowy depths of his command citadel. His once impervious empire was crumbling, and his most trusted agents had been exposed as traitors. He slammed his fist into the console in front of him, his sharp features twisting into a snarl. "How did this happen?" Virik hissed, his voice trembling with a mix of fury and disbelief. "How could a mere human species bring down everything we've worked for?" His advisors, once proud, now appeared uneasy. The transmission had disrupted everything. Entire fleets had defected, and former allies of the Zarnak were beginning to question their allegiance. The galaxy was in chaos, and the Zarnak were losing control. "We underestimated them, Commander," one of his generals said, his voice strained. "The humans are more resilient than we thought, but we still have the strength to crush them. We just need to regroup, consolidate our forces." Virik's eyes narrowed. "It's too late for that. The humans have awakened the galaxy's sleeping giants. We can no longer hide in the shadows. We'll need to fight them in the open, and we'll need to do it now." Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Hale stood at the helm of the Vanguard, watching as the fleet prepared for the next phase of humanity's struggle. The broadcast had been a success, but it had only fueled the fire. The galaxy had heard humanity's defiance, but now they would expect more, much more. "We've exposed the Zarnak," Hale said, his voice heavy with the weight of what was to come. "But we're not finished. This is only the beginning. We need to rally our allies, and we need to be ready for the Zarnak's counterattack." The Wrath fleet had been victorious, but Hale knew that no victory came without a price. The Zarnak would not simply fold under the weight of their exposure. They would fight to preserve their empire, and the galaxy would be plunged into war. General Liu, now firmly aligned with Hale's vision, nodded grimly. "The galaxy is watching us, Captain. But the Zarnak will retaliate. We've made them a target, and we need to be ready for whatever comes next." Across the galaxy, other factions began to make their moves. The Xenthor, once the architects of humanity's downfall, saw an opportunity to regain their influence. The Eurethian Syndicate, fractured but not broken, were beginning to reorganize, looking for new alliances and ways to exploit the chaos. But the greatest challenge, by far, was the Zarnak themselves. Their empire, although shaken, was not yet defeated. Virik had already begun to marshal his remaining forces, assembling a vast armada to crush the human threat once and for all. The galaxy was poised on the edge of war, and the lines had been drawn. Humanity had become a symbol of resistance, but in doing so, they had also made powerful enemies. "We're in this together now," Hale said to his crew, his voice steady but resolute. "We've exposed the Zarnak, but the true test is yet to come. This war will determine the fate of every species in the galaxy, and we will fight it on our terms." But the path ahead would be perilous. The Zarnak, in their desperation, would use every weapon at their disposal: betrayal, deception, and outright warfare. But humanity had one advantage that no other species in the galaxy could claim: their unity. The galaxy may have been divided, but humanity had forged its strength through adversity, and it would not fall back into the shadows. Hale turned to Tanaka, his face hardening with determination. "Prepare the fleet. The reckoning is about to begin." And so, the war for the galaxy's future unfolded, one in which humanity would not just fight for survival, but for the right to shape their own destiny. The galaxy had already felt the tremors of the coming storm. Humanity's bold defiance against the Zarnak had united many, but the enemies of the human race were not idle. The Zarnak, stung by the loss of their secrecy and influence, now prepared for all-out war. Their fleets were massing at the outer edges of the galaxy, ready to crush the insurrection that had dared to expose them. Meanwhile, the galaxy's other powers were growing increasingly wary, unsure whether to ally with the rising human force or stand aside, waiting to see how the war would unfold. On Earth, Captain Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, gazing out into the vast expanse of space. His eyes, once filled with determination, now carried the weight of the galaxy's future. The war was no longer a distant possibility. It was here. The Zarnak were preparing for a full-scale attack, and their resources were vast. But humanity had something they had never accounted for: unity. "We've done everything we can to rally the galaxy's disillusioned races," Hale said, his voice steady but tinged with the exhaustion of endless preparation. "The Xenthor, the Eurethians, even the scattered remnants of the Zarnak's own defector fleets, they're all ready to stand with us." General Liu stepped up beside him, her expression hard. "But we don't have time for diplomacy anymore. The Zarnak are already moving. Our alliances will hold, but only if we strike first. If we wait for them to come to us, it'll be too late." Hale nodded grimly. "We make the first strike. The Zarnak think we're just an annoyance, a flash in the pan. They're wrong. We will show them the full force of humanity's will." The Wrath fleet, now fully assembled and reinforced, was a sight to behold. A combination of human ingenuity, captured alien technology, and powerful military tactics, It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dozens of ships, each a testament to human resilience, were poised for the coming battle. The Zarnak's primary fleet, led by High Commander Virik himself, was positioned at the edge of Zarnak-controlled space, ready to storm through humanity's defenses. It was a behemoth of destruction, an armada designed for one purpose: to crush humanity beneath its weight. But Hale knew that victory lay not in power alone, but in strategy. The battle began as soon as the two forces collided in the void of space. The Zarnak ships, massive and intimidating, advanced like a wall of destruction, unleashing waves of devastating firepower. But humanity was fast, adaptable, and relentless. The Wrath fleet danced between the blasts, evading the Zarnak's onslaught while returning fire with precision. Each ship worked as one, every maneuver calculated, every strike purposeful. "We're taking heavy fire from their lead ships," Tanaka reported from the tactical console, her voice tight with the intensity of the battle. "But we're pushing through. Their flanks are weak." Hale's eyes locked onto the battlefield. "We need to exploit that weakness. Split the fleet. Half of us push to disrupt their command ships, while the rest form a blockade to protect our allies." The fleet responded instantly, splitting into two groups. Half of the human ships surged forward, attacking the Zarnak command ships directly, while the other half stayed behind, providing cover and blocking reinforcements. The Zarnak fleet struggled to respond to the sudden shift in tactics, their lines disjointed as they tried to adjust to humanity's unrelenting advance. But Virik was no fool. He realized that the humans had figured out his strategy and were using it against him. In a desperate bid, he called for reinforcements, more ships, more firepower, more destruction. But it was too late. The tide had already turned. "I want that flagship now," Hale barked, his voice a force of will that seemed to shake the very walls of the Vanguard. "Target Virik's flagship with everything we've got. Bring it down, and the rest will fall apart." The Vanguard and the ships in its charge locked onto the Zarnak flagship. The battle became a desperate, brutal exchange. Explosions rocked the Zarnak ship as human weapons found their mark, punching through its defenses. Virik's crew fought back with ferocity, but the writing was on the wall. The flagship, once the pride of the Zarnak fleet, was now a burning hulk. With a final, resounding explosion, the Zarnak flagship was torn apart, and the Zarnak forces began to retreat. The remaining Zarnak ships, without leadership, were scattered and broken, retreating into the darkness from whence they came. "We've done it," General Liu said, her voice reverberating with awe. "The Zarnak are broken." But Hale's expression remained grave. "This battle is won, but the war is far from over." Though the Zarnak's command had been shattered, their empire was vast, and there were still pockets of resistance throughout the galaxy. Many of the Zarnak's corrupted allies would not give up easily. Hale knew that this victory, while crucial, was only the beginning. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was a vast and dangerous place. Now, more than ever, they would need to unite, stand firm, and fight for their right to shape their own future. "We have the galaxy's attention," Hale said. "Now we finish what we started." Humanity's wrath had begun, and this time, the galaxy would kneel before them.